Welcome to Garden Fork Radio, the podcast about what I call DIY living. It's kind of a eclectic mashup of home improvement, how-to, maker, DIY, cooking, gardening. Basically, whatever comes into my brain on a weekend, I make a video about it. And that is available on our site and on YouTube. And this podcast is for all the cool stuff that doesn't make it into a video, plus whatever else pops into my head. So welcome, and thanks for listening. Today's show is a solo show. Rick and I could not, it's really my fault because I couldn't get my act together enough to say, hey, let's do a show when you're available. And I did not have any interview guests lined up this week. It was a little chaotic last week, so trying to make things happen for this week, that kind of thing just kind of happens. The most interesting thing last week, warning, I'm going to talk about a medical procedure here, if you want to skip past this part. But I had a colonoscopy last week, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, and people might be a little squeamish, and if you don't want to hear this part, you can skip past about 3 or 4 minutes, all right? It is the easiest thing in the world. There might be some trepidation, there might be this kind of reluctance, at least among Americans, to talk about getting food back out of your body. There's a whole lot about getting food into your body, which I find kind of ironic, because everything that comes in has to be processed and go back out again. So let me just walk you through it. I made an appointment. My primary care guy, doctor, said, it's time for another checkup. There's a history of this in my family, so I started earlier, and this is my second one I've had. And it's really quite easy. There seems to be this urban legend or myths built up around it because people haven't experienced it and they hear other people that have complain about it. And basically, the day before your procedure, I guess the night before your procedure, you take a liquid, which can sometimes be kind of orangey tasting. It just depends on what they're going to prescribe for you. And it's a laxative because what you need to do is get all the processed food out of your intestinal tract. And it's not that big of a deal. It's basically your stomach gurgles some, and you have to go to the bathroom a couple more times than you usually would. I kind of look at it as kind of a cleanse. It's like a one-day cleanse. And then the day before your procedure, you just can't eat food. And I forgot to turn the phone off. Thank you. But you can, what my doctor, and they give you a sheet beforehand that says what you can and cannot do. I could drink clear liquids and things like ginger ale, lemon lime, Gatorade, tea with no milk in it, no dairy products, no coffee. And I had to stop taking aspirin. I don't take any aspirin, but a painkiller like Advil or something like that. And then, by the way, get your colonoscopy scheduled in the morning. That's my suggestion for all medical procedures. But you go to it's an endoscopy center that I went to. Super comfortable, people just waiting around, and you all know why you're there, And you will get up a couple times at night to have to go to the bathroom again because of the laxative, the cleanse, basically, that's going on. And that's a good thing. You want to be cleaned out because if you don't follow their instructions to the letter and you still have material in your intestinal tract, they can't do the colonoscopy and you have to redo the whole thing all over again. And then you basically put on like a surgical gown. Everyone else has one on too. The staff are super nice. You're led into a procedure room. It looks like a kind of a small operating room. They ask you a couple of health questions, if you had any aspirin, do you have asthma, do you have a heart condition, this kind of thing. Anesthesiologist just puts a very tiny IV in your arm. They gave me a little oxygen, and I talked to the doctor a little bit, and the next thing I knew, the anesthesiologist said, okay, we're going to give you just a little bit of anesthetic here, and boom, I was out, and I woke up, and I was in the recovery area, and a nurse there offered me some apple juice, and it was the nicest apple juice I'd ever drank. And that was it. And the doctor came back in and said, everything's fine, Eric. You're nice and clean. All look good. Boom, you're done. It's a treatable cancer if they do find it early. And yeah, you're going to lose a day, but that's it. The hardest part of it for me is the anesthesia. I never react well to anesthesia, so I was a little nauseous afterward. And you're not going back to work after this. You just lay low. I thought I would be really hungry, and I wasn't. I didn't really eat until the next day. And then even then, you have to take it easy because your body is essentially empty of food, and it's going to take a while to fill it back up. So, but pay attention to the instructions they give you beforehand, and when you leave the endoscopy center, they'll give you several sheets of information about how to bounce back, and any questions you can call them. So there you go. That's my 5 minutes of what happens after you put food in your body. It's a super simple procedure. And I'm always a little anxious because until you know about it and you've done it once, you're like, oh, what's going to go on here? Just drink Gatorade or ginger ale. I had some chicken broth as well, which is okay. And you have this deadline. It's really what kind of focused me. I'm like, okay, I can't eat today. And at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, I'm going to have a procedure. And after that, I can eat. And that really, I work well with deadlines. And I think generally people do. If you have a date that something has to happen, it works much better. If your primary care physician does not bring this up and you are hitting 50, it's time to bring it up with them. A lot of insurance companies cover it completely. There might be a copay. It just depends on your insurance. So there you go. Eric's thought on a preventative procedure. There you go. Had a lot of really good feedback on having Mike as a co-host with Rick talking about his weight loss, which I think is great. He posted a picture on Facebook this morning or yesterday of him wearing a new cycling shirt that he had just got. And he looked amazing because I've met Mike and seen him in pictures, and he was a pretty big guy, and now he's not nearly the big guy. His diet we posted on the website. It's on the post for that Garden Fork Radio episode. Couple of thoughts about that. I have cut out bread, and I have cut down a lot on sugar. I haven't cut sugar completely out of my diet, and I think that's okay. But I'm not out to lose as much weight. But there you go. Catherine wrote a note on the website about it. Catherine says, well written and a very sound plan to follow, Mike. I'm eating almost the same as you are. I have also found that prepping chicken breast and a vegetable for 2 to 3 days worth in little Tupperware lunches at a time makes it highly doable, affordable, and easy. So basically, preparing your lunches in batches. I also hard-boil my eggs and peel one the night before to take with me to work each day. I never used to eat breakfast at all either, and I completely get your point about taking the time to have breakfast now. Congrats on your weight loss, but more so on your overall health. And yeah, losing weight is a domino for so much more than that. I've actually been having eggs a couple of days a week now. I really like oatmeal, and Mike says that that's a no-go, but I still have it. I think it's really good for the fact that it's very filling. It's high in fiber. I think that part is important as well. But what was a very interesting thing out of left field is I was running around Brooklyn the other day, and I was in my old neighborhood, and so I called a good friend of mine, and we met at one of those coffee cafe places, which I would consider decorated in minimalist Pottery Barn kind of style. And I think you all know what I'm talking about. And we got some coffees. I drink decaf, so they made me a decaf Americano. And my friend Bill he gave up coffee, which is interesting, so he had some tea. But I got a cookie. They have really good cookies there. And I actually know the guy that bakes their cookies, a fellow named Pete. And Bill commented to me, he goes, "You're not giving up sugar." And I forgot that Bill listens to the podcast. So it was interesting. We were talking about diet and things like that. But it was just out of left field where the podcast comes back to me, and I thought that was kind of fun. So a little shout out to Bill. He is listening, and he says he's going to become a Patreon contributor, which you can do as well. Nice segue here. If you like what you're hearing here on Garden Fork, we have an ongoing support campaign through a website called Patreon. We're asking for $3 a month, which is basically a cup of coffee, or at least a cup of coffee at the minimalist Pottery Barn designed coffee place. So it's $36 a year, which is, I think, like a magazine subscription. If you're interested, there's a link in the show notes here. If you click on the little Garden Fork Radio icon while this is playing on your iPhone, I think also on your Android phone, it'll flip to text and it'll show the show notes for the show, and there'll be a clickable link there. It's patreon.com/gardenfork. There's also a link on every page of Garden Fork, probably on the right-hand side somewhere. So if you consider that, that'd be cool. A couple of weeks ago, my in-laws came to visit, and I've been recovering from a back injury, and I haven't been able to keep the house as clean as I like to. And the camera operator said, we should really have someone come in here and clean the house before our guests come. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So through a neighbor, I found a cleaning person team, super nice people. They live in the neighborhood. They came over and they were at the house for almost all day. And we have several doormats at the front and the back doors. And they're like those low pile carpets, but they're full of yellow Labrador hair. And I'm never able to get them very clean because I just have a cheaper vacuum. But they used a vacuum, and I didn't see what the vacuum was until I came down to see what they were doing, and they had these rugs clean, and it was a Dyson vacuum. So I researched Dyson vacuums, and they're really amazing. I bought one, and I will link to it in the show notes here, but if you're thinking about a vacuum, I've learned that the cheap ones just don't do nearly as good as the good ones, and I've talked about this before, but I'll link to the Dyson that we got. The bigger Dysons I found almost too heavy. They make it's called a Dyson Mini, I think. I can't remember the exact model number, but I'll have it in the show notes here. And I bought one of those, and it works really well. The hose that comes with it to do attachments and to like vacuum in the corners and stuff isn't as long as their bigger vacuums. But I think the trade-off is you're more likely to use this vacuum because it's smaller and easier to carry around. So there you go. Thoughts on that. Yesterday in the mail, our seed garlic came. I order from Fillory Farm, and I was a little, I was reading, the different descriptions on their website and looking at the pictures, and the garlic that came is all great, but I was hoping for some big clove garlic this year to plant, and everything that I got was kind of medium clove and smaller clove. So what I'm going to do, and this is no reflection on Fillory Farm, I actually think they're great to order from. I'm going to go to my local farmer's market, and I would be willing to bet there's a farmer there selling garlic, not necessarily as seed garlic, but just dried garlic. And you can use that as seed garlic to plant in your yard. It's really best to get that in now rather than in the early spring. Every spring, I get people asking me, when do I plant my garlic? And I'm like, 4 months ago is when you plant your garlic. It needs a head start, so put it in now. Your garlic may sprout this fall, but that's perfectly okay. Just leave it be. Some snow might come and insulate that. You can also mulch it. I don't mulch my garlic. You need to pull the mulch off in the springtime. And then just let it go. And then in the late winter, it'll start to grow again, and just let it go until about the middle of July. We have several videos about that on the Garden Fork site. It's a how to grow and harvest garlic video series, which I'm really quite happy with because people seem to like it. I get good feedback. So there you go. If you're thinking about doing garlic for next year, needs to go in now. I think Fillory Farm, it's Fillaree farm.com. They are in Utah, Oregon, that area up in there. In the Northwest. They are still selling seed garlic, I believe, and they will have it shipped to you. I just got mine the other day. Put it in the ground, and it'll be a lot of fun. It's also, you can have the scapes, which is the flower of the garlic, and I think is it a sterile flower? I could be wrong about that. But garlic scapes, great thing to have in the spring, and of course we have a video about that in our Growing Garlic series. So there you go. Time for a little more viewer mail. We have a note from Lisa on the website. And she asked, does Erin have a website or a YouTube channel? And Erin is one of our regular co-hosts here. And we were talking with her. about her garden and her... Bleh. We will link in the show notes here to her site, but it's called theimpatientgardener.com. So if you just type into Google The Impatient Gardener, I would think it would show up. I could do it right now and see what happens. Or just theimpatientgardener.com. Let's go. Impatient Gardener. And there you go. There's a book called The Impatient Gardener. And then the second thing that comes up is the Impatient Gardener website. So there you go. Did not realize there's a book about that. Huh. All right. Learned something there. But back to some more mail here. Jim, who is a regular listener, I know, we talked with Aaron about handwritten mail and also about Cracker Barrel. And Jim said, handwritten mail, not in some 25 years, other than pro forma birth death notice or party RSVP. Okay, Jim. And he talks about Cracker Barrel. I don't mind the food, but the gift shop is like torture to me. Always like to hear from you guys. It's radio@gardenfork.tv. That's radio@gardenfork.tv. So there you go, the Eric Solo Show. Hope you're all enjoying it. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. If you would consider writing an iTunes review, that'll really help us. So go to iTunes you basically have to go on your computer. It doesn't seem to work on a phone. And say something nice about us in the review section of the Garden Fork Radio iTunes page. All right, so make it a great day. I'll see you later. Garden Fork's theme music is used under license from uniquetracks.com.